Hello there, you awakening wonders. Thanks for joining me today for Stay Free with Russell Brand. We've got some very special interviews that I grabbed while I was at the RNC. They're pretty fascinating to watch because they are, I would say, members of that party that have been influential in a variety of ways. One's Kari Lake, who's sort of like a superstar politician who became disenchanted with mainstream media and ultimately ended up running for a variety of political positions, one in particular, of course, but she still remains a significant voice within the Republican Party and also got the ire of the mainstream media, as you might have seen in this viral clip.
You are just a sad case of a human being, and I'm so sorry for you. I'm sorry that you bought into the propaganda. I hope that you'll look in the mirror and see that you've been following propaganda and you don't understand what's happening.
So I'm guessing if you don't win in November, you won't concede. That's the rule that you're playing by now, is it?
I actually think you need your head examined.
Can you answer that?
I think you need your head examined.
Now, when I had a conversation with her, she was a lot more convivial, congenial, gentle and downright reasonable. That's what's mad when you meet all of these fascists that the legacy media tell you you've got to hate. They're perfectly reasonable people. Now, I recognise that duplicity and deception are options available to people interpersonally, and I would say that that's the very charge that I would level at most of these free-letter legacy media institutions. They act like they care for you, they act like they're helping you, they act like they're informing you, but ultimately they're amplifying the message of the powerful. So this is a brilliant conversation, I think, between me and Kari Lake. Certainly a lot less antagonistic than some of the conversations like the one we've just seen over there. And the first part will be on YouTube, then we'll be exclusively on Rumble. Remember to like and subscribe, download the Rumble app if you get a minute, and enjoy this conversation with me and Kari Lake. Kari, thanks for joining us today for Stay Free with Russell Brand. I'm thrilled that you are here. You look amazing. I love your earrings. I love everything about you. It's extraordinary to meet you and to experience just how gentle you are, you being yet another one of the people that I'm meeting over this extraordinary experience that I've seen vilified and demonized to an extraordinary degree. It's been very difficult. I've also experienced it myself, by the way, but I wonder what kind of impact that's had on your ability to remain faithful and gentle, having been subject to such coruscating judgment from the media within once you so safely and presumably for a while happily worked.
Yeah. I don't like it.
I don't like it.
It's not my favorite thing, but I know who I am. My family knows who I am. My children know, those people close to me. And frankly, a lot of the people in the media, especially Arizona media that I used to work with, they know who I am, and they know it's not the person that they are now broadcasting out there as some. And I have to go and prove I don't have horns sometimes. And but this is just the world we're living in. Do I wish it were a more gentle, friendly world? Yes, but we were born in this time, and I never questioned God. He put us here for this moment, and he never said it was going to be easy. You know, when you're living the truth in a difficult time like this, you're going to get castigated. You're going to get canceled. You're going to get slandered. You know, all of that's going to happen. But I know that the ultimate meeting, the one I will have with God someday, I want that one to go well. So I'm going to take any punch they throw my way. It just serves to strengthen us. It gives you more courage. Once you act courageously, then the next time around, you know what to do. Okay, another courageous act and another courageous act. And along the way, other people are seeing it and they're saying, hey, maybe I can be courageous too. And that's why you see an arena full of courageous patriots here in Milwaukee celebrating the America First movement, and there's tens of millions, hundreds of millions, I think, at home who feel the same way.
Kari, externally, this event, though, and movement, in fact, is vilified at large in much the manner that you have been, and I have been, individually. In fact, I would say one of the moments of my personal changes in sympathy and understanding came when I saw how readily and indeed enthusiastically in a significant portion, maybe over half of the population, were breezily damned and condemned in a manner that felt very unappealing and in fact appalling to me. A similar thing happened in my country around Brexit. Of course, you'll be aware at the same time that Donald Trump was elected initially, that I sensed in media and in institutional places this great disdain for working people and how easily it was interpreted into condemnation first and then the legitimization for that contempt subsequently. These people are racist. These people are abhorrent. These people are dirty. They can do that to entire populations, or they can do it to individuals. I've witnessed both and, of course, experienced both as you have. What was your perspective when you worked within media, when you were, to a degree, I presume, a darling of it and herald it? How do you go from basking, or indeed at least living, if not basking, I don't want to assume basking, you might have just been living.
I love that word.
You have a little bask. How do you go for, like, how did your perspective of it change? Because you've had, like, now, how do you regard the institutions within which you worked, and how will the reverse trick be done now? All of these people that loathe the movement of which you are a part, which will presumably come to government in November, this is my assumption, although I've heard that people don't want to be presumptuous. How will there be a true unifying process rather than one of vengeance and ongoing condemnation? I know there was a lot there.
I got a lot. Okay, I'm going to go back to the first part of that. When I worked in the media for 30 years, 27 years covering Arizona, 22 as the lead anchor at the main #1 station, I helped bring them to the #1 position. I have a great relationship with the people of Arizona. Of course, I saw the newsrooms across the country. I started back when news was fair. You cover both sides. You keep your opinion out of it, because I'm old school. I'm a little bit older than the average person in TV. But then I saw how the older people were kind of being pushed out and young people were coming in who just fresh out of J school, journalism school. They weren't taught that. They were taught to be social justice warriors. So that's how the shift, where you went from newsrooms being a little more ideologically balanced to being 90, 95, 98% left-leaning or downright leftists. And so it was an uncomfortable place to be kind of to the right. You know, when Donald Trump came down that escalator, I said, this man is speaking not only my language, but the language of the American people. And I started really seeing it when Donald Trump came down the escalator, and I saw how people just turned on him, calling him things like racist and just the worst names, and people in the news business. And I'm thinking, what did he do that was racist? I saw this pile on, and I was curious about it. I'm like, why the pile on? What is going on here? And it was so unfair. And then, but I always push back, and I always really push to be fair with whatever came out of my mouth. It was only during COVID that I realized I cannot get the truth out here. It's a half truth here, a little morsel of maybe truth, but the government line here, only government doctors are pre-approved by the CDC. Could we put their line out? And I'm old enough to know what propaganda is. I mean, I've studied history. My father was a history teacher. I realized one day, I've been working since I was 7, by the way. I'm from a big family, and I've always, my family didn't believe in they didn't believe in child labor laws. I started babysitting at 7, back in the 70s when people would leave a baby with a 7-year-old. But so I've been working my whole life, and I finally, during COVID, with all of this insanity that made no sense, lifted my nose off the grindstone, and I did not recognize my profession anymore. And I went to my husband one night. I was working from home because of COVID. They separated us out. We don't want to spread the cold virus. And I came out of my office one night after doing the news, and I said, I can't do this anymore. These are some of the things that they have put in these scripts are lies. And I know that's immoral.
Sorry to interrupt you, but what lies, may I ask?
Well, I mean, lies about not half-truths. So half-truths, like hydroxychloroquine is deadly and dangerous. It's been around for 60 years. It's one of the most safe drugs out there, and it might have potential to help. Ivermectin is that kind of stuff.
See, yes.
Pushing the Fauci line, pushing the narrative, if you don't get the vaccine immediately, you're responsible for the death of your grandparents. And our little kids, if they get near grandma and grandpa, are going to kill. Peaceful protests when our cities were burning to the ground. That kind of thing. The pushing of fear on COVID deaths and COVID cases. And I didn't want to be part of that. So I walked away from my job. I walked away from a very large 7-figure contract at a time when things were, where's the economy going? We didn't know. But I just threw my life 100% to God. And I said, God, I know this is right. And when I did that, I said, I know you've got me. I'm walking away. I just want to know that I'm not going to regret this in 6 months. Can you give me some reassurance? I was praying. This is a true story. I was praying at my office. I said, Give me some reassurance. I'm not going to look back in 6 months and say, oh my gosh, you walked away from that kind of money. And at that moment, as I was praying, I grabbed my Bible, opened it to a random page, dropped my finger down, 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 7, you bring nothing into this world, and it is for certain you take nothing out. And I took that as an answer I was seeking from God. You're going to be okay. You're worried about walking away from a huge paycheck? That doesn't impress God. That doesn't impress God. But if I stay and collect a paycheck like so many people in the mainstream media, they're being paid by their corporate donors and managers, not donors, they're corporate CEOs and their bosses to basically lie and divide our country. So we walked away. I never looked back. I never thought I'd be in politics, but the people of Arizona reached out and said, would you please run for office? We need someone who's got courage, who's honest and understands the issues. And that's how I ended up in the world of politics.
Yes. And again, immediately became the recipient of great ire. And to a person that only consumes, shall we call it for simplicity's sake, the ordinarily available slough and trough of vile slops that amounts to legacy media coverage, you would assume that you were kind of a villainous figure. And I wonder how...
I was actually surprised, though, that they were so awful to me.
Oh, yeah.
At first, I said to, when I decided to jump into politics, I knew nothing. I didn't know how to get into politics. I covered it for years, but I had to call the AZ GOP and go, how do you run for office? I mean, would you know? Most people, and citizens should know, because our founding fathers envisioned citizens stepping forward and running. It shouldn't be such a complicated process, but I had to call and ask, and I jumped into the race as a fed-up mom and a former journalist, and I had no idea what to do. I didn't know the first thing about it, and I just started. I announced I was going to run for governor at the time, and I said to my team, I'm not going to do any interviews because the fake news is so evil. When I walked away, they covered it. They got all the facts wrong. They tried to make me look bad for walking away from my career. And so I said, no interviews whatsoever. I'm just going to ignore the fake news. And then I got talked into doing one 5-minute interview with a local station. It was a total hit piece. I recognized immediately the questions were just meant to, like, gotcha, it was going to be a negative piece.
Yeah.
And inside, Russell, I was seething. I was like smoke coming out of my ears. I felt like I was losing control. I was filled with anger that they were doing this. And not why are you running? Why did you walk away? What do you hope to do and accomplish if you're elected governor? None of that.
No.
It was just all negative.
Yeah.
So I finished the interview. I gave him more time than I promised. And I got on the phone with one of the guys on my campaign. I said, that was the biggest mistake I've ever done. I think I completely lost control. That's going to be a really bad thing. And as I'm talking to him on the phone, my husband is like re-racking the video, and he pulls his headphone off. He goes, I don't know what you're talking about. This is brilliant. You burn the guy to the ground. And that's when I realized that I had the ability to turn the tables on the media. So we put that out, and we started showing both sides of the media, the nasty questions they ask, because when they edit the piece, they take their nastiness out and they just put your response. So we started turning the tables on them, putting the video camera on them. And that kind of became a little bit of our campaign. We were going to expose the fake news. I think it's one of the most dangerous entities right now in America, because they've been lying and committing character assassination against President Trump and his supporters for 8 years. How do you withstand that? No wonder people have TDS. When I see somebody who doesn't like President Trump, I'm not mad at them. I actually feel bad that they've been the victim of the largest smear campaign we've ever seen inflicted on one individual or one political movement, the largest brainwashing campaign. They've actually been brainwashed, which is a very powerful tool to try to turn people against one another.
Yeah. And
you didn't know I was going to talk so much, did you?
No, I hoped. Gosh, there's so much there. But one thing, when you describe the process of turning the cameras on the media, it seems like you've individually experienced and participated in one of the transitions that's taking place, i.e. the kind of loss of that centralized power and its and how it is becoming disseminated and diffuse, that they've lost the ability to absolutely control the way that information is presented, the way that information is categorized.
Their false narrative.
Their false narratives are being lost.